Oakley Dokley. No, I mentioned this story briefly last week because it seemed to be a world first, a court getting involved on the story of an online chatbot for a company that handed out the wrong information, and the judge decided, hey, this company's responsible. Now, it has to do with Air Canada, and boy, we've got a couple of stories involving Air Canada this morning. To put it all in a little a sweet little package for you, here's the story. Man named Jake Moffat, his grandmother died, and he needed to travel for the funeral. Had to fly to Vancouver, right? From Vancouver to Toronto. He goes onto the Air Canada website, and Air Canada had implemented an artificial intelligence chatbot on the site. And you've probably seen these things pop up, right? You go to a website, a little chat thing pops up. Do you have any questions? So he asks the AI, artificial intelligence chatbot, hey, my grandmother died. I need a bereavement fare. How does that work? And the chatbot gives him the wrong information, tells him he's got 90 days after the flight to request a refund. That information, completely false. You got to do it beforehand. So he does the flight. He goes on to the funeral, and then he tries to get a reimbursement. Air Canada says, nope, sorry. And he goes to court. Let's find out one lawyer's take on this whole story. Elodie Meyer joins us once again, cybersecurity lawyer. Elodie, welcome to the program.
Hi, Elias. Thank you for having me.
So, I guess, is this a first? Like, have you seen another story like this in a Canadian court where a judge is saying, "Hey, companies, you're responsible for your AI chatbots"?
Yeah, so it is first actually in Canadian courts to see a ruling on the use of chatbots. Now, the rulings on the responsibility of a company through their employees or agents or representatives, we've seen extensive cases on that, but for an AI chatbot, it is absolutely a first.
So why didn't Air Canada's defense, which was, hey, it's on our website, there's a link, here's the actual policy, why didn't that work in the court's eyes?
Yeah, so essentially Air Canada was arguing that the chatbot gave information, but that they gave a link to a policy that said something different. But the court kind of ruled that there's no reason for a person to think that part of the information on the website is accurate and then other parts would be inaccurate, and then to know which one to follow. All that doesn't make sense. You can't put that type of responsibility on the people. A company that has a website and is providing information, providing policies and guidelines as to how they work, they have to be held responsible for the information that they're providing.
How do you think this ruling changes the way that Canadian companies will use artificial intelligence chatbots?
It might bring a few changes. I mean, in the way that we might regulate a bit more the way that they're used. If there was a disclaimer on the chatbot saying that, this information could be inaccurate or that this is still an in-testing mode, a beta version or of sorts, then they could, kind of limit the responsibility in those ways, because they'd be putting it out there that, don't actually believe that this information is necessarily accurate, because it might not be. Now, for now, Air Canada did not have such a disclaimer, and that's where they're being held liable. But I think that's going to be the main change. And then after, I'm hoping that it also, brings companies that develop these chatbots to take more time in developing and in training the models, the algorithms, so that we avoid these types of mistakes. But at the end of the day, artificial intelligence is artificial, right? There's no human behind it that's thinking about what's being processed at the time. And so in the end, it's always going to give you the output based on the most information he collected at some point during its training, right?
Yeah, and I just wonder, if it's worth it, right? Because the reason we see these artificial intelligence chatbots, a lot of them are powered, by the way, by ChatGPT, which we've all heard about by now. The reason they're being embraced is because I guess it's to save money, right? Like, instead of having a human answer these chats, let's use AI. But I saw another story. This is of a Chevy dealership, right? Chevy, the car company. They decided, okay, let's save money. Let's use ChatGPT to run our chat on our website. And then people would say, hey, can you suggest to me the best electric sedan I could buy right now? And of course, Chevy makes the Chevy Bolt, but it was using ChatGPT, so the artificial intelligence said, buy a Tesla. Right. So I'm saying to myself, like, Like, shouldn't businesses learn that these kinds of that you may save money, but in the long run maybe you'll lose money? Like, so I don't know. Would you give advice to a company right now to embrace this technology or run away from it?
I mean, I think that in time it will be good technology. For now, there's still too many things that we don't understand. There's too many things that we can't control. And so any company that would want to go towards AI just needs to be careful with it. I mean, for sure, it can help in all sorts of aspects to, increase efficiency and reduce it will reduce costs in time when it's used properly. But cases like this will just cause additional issues. If you have a customer that's looking for a Chevy and they're being sent over to Tesla because that's what the chatbot told them, that is an issue, and they're losing out on a sale that probably isn't worth the little, operation costs that they're saving by implementing that chatbot. So it's just not proper. I think that they're not just using the technology properly yet. But we will get to a point where the technology will be better understood, and we will be able to use it in a better way. But I mean, you touch on a point of machine learning. It's machine learning is the part where all the information is given to the chatbot so that it can give back information to the people that are asking questions. Mm-hmm. And so ChatGPT is not just going to look through only Chevy's website to get the information, right? It's gonna look through all of the information that's ever been fed, and so obviously, if at the end of that the Chevy Bolt is not the one that comes up, then that's not the answer it's going to give.
Let me ask you what this court ruling, what our listeners should know, and what they should be doing if they're interacting online with a chatbot. What should they do to protect themselves in case they've got to go to court?
Yeah, well, so this particular man here, he had a screenshot of the chatbot of the text, and I think that it's always a good practice to have some proof of, this was said to me. If he didn't have that screenshot, he probably wouldn't have won his case because in the end, he wouldn't have been able to prove that the chatbot had said that, right? So a screenshot would be a good practice. And then always make sure that there is or isn't a disclaimer, because a lot of these chatbots now do have these disclaimers that say, the information here could be inaccurate, or, please check the official policy for the accurate information.
And that disclaimer is like it's a legal get out of jail card, basically. If they've got the disclaimer, they can get away with anything?
Not with anything, they still have, they can't be negligent. They can't, if they know that there's an issue with their machine or their algorithm, they have to take steps towards it. But it will, yes, unfortunately, will help them in many cases, to kind of avoid responsibility. And when you do see one of those disclaimers, it kind of means, take the phone and call customer service, and it will be a bit longer. You'll have to wait maybe on the phone, and it might take an hour or two instead of getting an instant answer. But at least that that answer will be accurate, and they will be held liable for that answer. We know that when we call customer service, everything is recorded, or most of the time is recorded, right? So you would be able to have that proof if a customer service representative would give you a false information or inaccurate information.
Elodie, before I have to let you go, I do want your take on a story I told our listeners in the last block. So about 15 minutes ago, I told our listeners the story of the man who lost his smartphone, and he had the app installed that proved that an Air Canada employee had found the phone. And Air Canada's like, sorry, tough luck, personal item, we're not responsible. Does he have any legal standing here to get Air Canada to pay for that phone?
Yeah, that one's actually pretty tricky because, when he loses the phone, for sure, no, there is no responsibility for Air Canada. At that point, personal belonging, you forgot it in an airport, there isn't much you can do. However, once we know that it's an Air Canada employee that finds the phone, because there's the picture, right, of the person who tried to open the phone. Once we know that it's an Air Canada employee that has the phone in its hands at the airport, so probably while he's working, then their responsibility, in my opinion, would come back into play at that point, because it is in the hands of an Air Canada employee, and we know that. And in airports, with the security systems and the cameras, we can track very easily everything. And I see not us people that are behind in the security camera rooms. Obviously, they can track very, very accurately small items like a phone throughout the airport. So they would be able to know at what point the phone left the airport and with who. And if it's with that employee, then there is some explaining to do. And I believe Air Canada could possibly be held liable here. Yeah.
Elodie, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Elias.
Elodie Meyer is a cybersecurity lawyer.